going?
Yeah.
Okay, so Porterhouse. First things first. On your oven, bake 375 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't have a convection oven, so I'm not going to use convection. If you want to use convection, I'd probably do 350 with convection, but I'm going to do 375 in a still. You got your porterhouse. There's bay leaf, there's thyme in there, and there's a clove of garlic. So this has been sitting out on the counter for about 10-15 minutes. You just don't want it to be ice cold when you go to finish it. We're going to go ahead, we're going to cut this bag open. And the bone in the bag is wrapped in plastic. That's just so we can cryovac it and it doesn't burst. You don't need that plastic at all for anything. So you can just leave that in the bag. Take your bay leaf and your thyme off of your steak, and then sit it on a paper towel. Just kind of blot any liquid off of it that got on it while it was cooking in the bag. So we got one there, and then we're going to blot the top of it. I'm going to use a cast iron for this. If you want to use your grill, you can use your grill. Unfortunately, I live in a condo. I don't have a grill. But if you do, you can use a grill. If you want to use a grill pan, you can do that as well. But I'm going to use a cast iron. So I'm going to turn it on high. The steak itself is already seasoned with salt and pepper. That's before we bag it. So there's no need to season this steak right at this moment. What we'll do is we'll sear it really nice. We'll baste it in some butter. We'll put it on a rack. We'll go on our 375 degree oven. And then when it comes out, it's gonna rest for about 5-6 minutes, somewhere in there. And then we're gonna slice it, and then we're gonna put finishing salt on top of it when we plate it. So while this pan is getting hot, I'm gonna take a little bit of Lee's canola oil, just because it has a high smoking point, and put it in my pan. I can see that when I put it in the pan, it automatically just kind of started to web, so it's already hot. But I want this to be really hot to sear this piece of meat. Okay, so at this point our pan is very hot. I'm starting to see wisps of smoke come off of it. So we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna pick up our porterhouse. I'm gonna pick it up by the bone at the top. My oven's ready too. And then I'm gonna put it in, and I'm gonna kind of swirl it around and go away from me so I don't splash oil on my hand. So you can hear sizzle, really hard sear. We're going to establish that on both sides, and then we're going to baste it in butter. You want to just kind of leave your steak where it is and let it do its thing. Whenever you sear, you kind of want to just like let it be and let it establish that that crust on the outside. A lot of times what happens is people will go into a pan and it'll stick, and their natural instinct is kind of like make it come loose, but what you want to do is just kind of let it do its thing, and by the time it establishes that crust, the piece of protein will come loose. You don't want to rip the meat, you don't, tear the protein, anything like that. Like this right now is a little bit stuck to the pan in parts, so I'm just going to leave it be and let it do its thing. You can really cook any steak like this. I love cooking steak in a pan and basting it with butter. One of my favorites is hanger steak. It turns out really, really nice like this, but this is going to be really, really delicious once it's got that crust on it. We cook them to rare in the bag, so the steak itself is already at rare. So to get it to medium rare, it's just going to be searing it on both sides and putting it in the oven for like 10 minutes really quick. We're cooking, obviously this piece of meat has a bone running through the middle of it, so it's going to be very important that we get it warm right on that bone. So I think Gotta get a nice crust on this side. Okay, it's been about a minute and a half to 2 minutes, somewhere in there. And I can see on the side I'm starting to get really good caramelization, so we're going to go ahead and flip it. Yeah, you can see that. Really beautiful. And we're going to do another minute and a half or so on this side as well. Okay, so our porterhouse has been on this side for about a minute and a half. At this point, this is completely optional. I really recommend doing it. I really like it. We're going to go in with some whole butter and baste our steak. So push your steak to the front of the pan and be careful. Put in your butter, and it's gonna, the pan's already really hot, so it's gonna foam and spit and be really awesome. We're gonna wait for that to completely melt, and then we're gonna baste our porterhouse for about 30 seconds or so. This just gets a nice caramelized flavor. We're basting it in the butter. The butter's browning in the pan. All the milk solids are getting all over it. Adds extra caramelization. Just really, really, really delicious. So all our butter's melting, starting to foam, and I'm just going to go over the top of the steak. Really delicious. This also helps if you have any pockets on your steak that didn't sear as well. This will take care of that for you as well. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And I'm just going to continue basting for like 15 seconds. Just make sure that the caramelization is really, really nice. So let it kind of hang out for a second because you don't want to pick it up and have butter go everywhere. When you pick it up, use your tongs or your spoon or whatever you're using. Get under it and just kind of pick it up and then put it on your tray. Me personally, I'm going to pour a little bit of this butter over the top of the steak so when it goes in the oven it's got fat on it. But I'm also going to reserve a little of this butter to finish on the plate just so it's got its roasting juices in it. So like I said, this oven's at 375 degrees and we're going to go in there for probably anywhere from 6 to 10 minutes, somewhere in there. Okay, so I just pulled the porterhouse out of the oven. It was in there for 8 minutes. And obviously every single piece of meat or every single one of these steaks is just going to be a little bit different. So you have to kind of look at it and be able to tell. So one of my kind of surefire ways to tell is if once it's ready, you put it on your cutting board or you've got it on your tray or whatever, if you just take your hands and kind of push it together, you'll see that all the juice in the steak is just kind of like sitting at the surface when you push it together. You don't want this juice to be like pouring out of it, because if that happens it's overcooked. But you just want that juice to be running inside of it, and when you do this you'll see it, and once you see that, it's fat and blood and everything that's in there. Once you see that, you know it's ready and it needs to rest for about, let's say we're gonna let this rest for 6 minutes. Okay, so porterhouse has been resting for about 6 minutes, and when I do this I still see juice come up, but it's not as, by feel it's not nearly as hot as it was on the inside, and the steak has started to reabsorb everything. The reason you want to let this rest is so as soon as it comes out, all the liquid in a steak as you cook it more and more is just trying to get out of the protein. So you let it rest to reabsorb all those juices, and also so when you slice into it, the juice doesn't just go all over the plate. So the idea here is when you bite into this steak, it's juicy and delicious. So what we're going to do is we're going to trim this up. The way I like to do it is we're going to stand the porterhouse on the bone. The tenderloin's over here and the strips over here. We're going to take a sharp knife and we're just going to follow down the bone. Just set this to the side, and then we're going to do the same thing over here. It's just a little weird because the bone back here is a little bit different than the one in the front, which is a little weird. We're just going to take it off. And we can see on the bone, it's a nice medium rare. It's not raw right on the bone. A lot of times you'll get these and they haven't let it rest to let the meat on the bone get all the way to where it needs to be. So we're going to take this, we're going to put it right on our plate here. Slice our tenderloin first. We're going to put it right back in the pocket here where it was. Then we're going to slice our strip too. And this is a big steak, and these are both really tender cuts of meat, so you don't need to slice it really thin. You can cut nice thick slabs of this. It's going to be delicious. We'll take this, we'll put it on here. And then lastly here, we're going to wipe down our cutting board and our knife because we're finished using it. So you can see here, the steak's really beautiful. It's on our plate, fanned out, ready to go. I'm gonna come back to the butter that I had left. It's in the pan, and I'm gonna drizzle just a little bit of that on top. Just really, really delicious. Really healthy too. And then we're gonna finish the top of this steak with some finishing salt. And that's it. You have a perfect porterhouse in 12 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. There it is.